Good evening. It's Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, 6:30 PM. Call to order the City of Franklin.
Recording in progress.
Now what? Open records requests already coming in. Start over. Call to order at 6:30 PM, the City of Franklin Common Council meeting of Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Alderman Hofer.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Here.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Alderwoman Day.
Here.
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Craig.
Here. Perfect. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, citizen comment period. Any citizen wishing to speak, please approach the podium. Well, hopefully the microphone's on. And please state your name and address for the record slowly. And
Hi,
try to
Mike.
limit everything to 3 minutes, maximum 3 minutes, as everything is posted up there for 3 minutes. I think it should be on.
You think it is?
We'll tap.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Mary Claire Lancer. My firm is Lancer Public Affairs. I'm here briefly on behalf of Communities of Crocus. You will be talking with them at your next meeting on March 19, where you'll be looking at a conceptual plan for a campus for autistic adults. I just wanted to be here tonight because I'm not able to be here on the 19th so that you could see me and I could tell you just what the outreach looked like. Representing us on the 19th will be Amy Hansel and Emily Peters, but I'll be in Arizona for spring training. So the process for the outreach followed my usual, which demonstrates respect to everyone and to all opinions. So on February 23, 24, and 26, I visited closest stakeholders who will eventually receive formal notices of public hearing as identified by city staff. I visited 86 homes and spoke with people at 41 of those homes. I write down their questions and concerns. It's very high tech. It looks like this, 1 card per household. With me, I have information binder that we can go through as little or as much as they care to see. And I passed out an invitation to a meeting we had last week, Thursday, where they could learn much more about this. At the meeting, it was supposed to be public open house from 4 until 6:30, but people stayed until about 7:30. 42 people signed in, and I pretty much begged everyone to fill out a questionnaire that looked like this. You will be receiving a report of all of this, the doors, with virtually everything anyone said, and whatever people said on this questionnaire. So I just wanted you to know that that had happened in case you get any calls or interest, and you will hear more. We appreciate that there's been interest in this, and I have to tell you that I've been doing this for 25 years, and I think the response to this was far and away more positive than most projects I work on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Rich Busalaki, 7772 Tuckaway Shores Drive. Just to let you all know, retirement is great. Retiree health care and WRS pension is awesome. I'm deciding with the extra time on my hands whether to run a recall for alderperson or to roll the dice and to run a recall for mayor. Not sure what to do at this point. A little extra time. Mayor Nelson, you should be ashamed of yourself from the actions at the last meeting, telling a police officer charged information to have him respond to me on your behalf without his knowledge, to harass me and to stomp on my First Amendment rights for.
No, that's not true, Mr. Buzlaki.
Mayor, Mr.
And what
Mayor,
we're going to do,
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor, this is
Buzlaki,
public
moving
comment.
forward
This is
is
public
every time
comment.
you start with a lie, Mr.
Mr.
Buzlaki, we're going to shut you down.
Mr. Mayor,
And
this
you're
is
going to be asked to leave,
comment,
Mr.
and guess
Buzlaki,
what?
because
Your job is to
nobody,
sit there and
we
listen to
read
me.
it, we read your, we've
So,
read it. We've read your
Mr. Mayor,
complaint,
Mr.
and
Mayor,
now
I think
you're
there's
coming out.
something- I think there's
You're
something
coming out
in-
right now
I
with this
think there's
First Amendment
something
stuff.
That is in
Could
the-
you please make your point and not
Mayor,
attack?
This is public comment. I'm
Not
able to
attack
say-
time.
Mr.
We're
Mayor,
not going to lie, Mr.
Mayor, I'm
Buzalaki.
able to say
Mr.
whatever I'd
Buzalaki,
like.
you're not gonna
Your
lie.
job is to listen to
My
me
job
in
is
public
not to
comment.
sit here and be lied about.
It's in
So
the
you can
code.
finish your
It's in the
point,
Franklin City
or you're
Code.
not going to be speaking anymore.
Mayor, it's in the Franklin City Code.
Not to come and lie.
Mr. Mayor? you
Nobody,
prove
nobody,
Mayor, you
nobody
prove it's a lie.
instructed anybody
You
to
prove
go and
it's a lie.
harass you.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Sure, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. You made my point. I appreciate it. You keep on delaying the report on Enchant because they've made no money. It's unfortunate that they lost money at the event. But because of that, we delay the report because no news is not any news to report because it does no good for you, Zimmerman and Taylor. Tonight, item 7 that you're going to be discussing on the agenda is a pay raise for the Common Council and the mayor. I'd like to let you know that based upon Section 26 of the state constitution, that's unconstitutional. The state constitution states, except as provided in this subsection, the compensation of a public officer may not be increased or diminished during the term of office. A public officer is defined as any person appointed, elected according to law to discharge a public duty for the state or one of its subordinate units. It's against state law and state constitution for elected officials to give themselves a raise while in office. They can, however, make it effective for the next election cycle or any newly or re-elected members. And the election cycle after that is clearly indicated in what you're looking at tonight, 98.1257. Be assured, if this body moves forward and approves it, I have a letter ready to go to the State Attorney General tomorrow. One last item. I did put a records request in for personal emails
3 minutes, Mr. Buzalaki.
from the mayor and from the Director of Administration. If the records are not provided that I know are there, I will be filing with the extra time that I have on my hands, being a retiree, a writ of mandamus to the circuit court requesting those records. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
Linda Mathwig, 7321 Brun Drive. This is in regards to the Common Council meeting agenda on February 21st, 2024. It's for your item number G40. Before the minutes are approved tonight, for item 40, I listened to the meeting and I downloaded the minutes and I found that there was no resolution as to what happened to G40. There was no motions, no vote. So I'm looking for clarification tonight on exactly what transpired for G40 from February 21st.
G40, closed session. Counselor, would you like to address that, or should we just have her talk? All right.
It's a closed session item, and no action was taken after re-entering open session.
So does it come up again as to
No
what?
action was taken.
So it's just dropped and not, you don't go back and look at it again?
No action was taken.
Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, the short answer was no action was taken, but these things can be brought back. There could be things brought back at a future meeting. There's a lot of moving parts to this, so at that specific G40, if this is on specific G40, was no action was taken at this point. And I can't,
from
I'm not gonna go any more into it.
That from the taxpayer's point of view, if people are specifically interested in one item, it would be nice to know what the resolution was. And
Well, if
maybe
there
that
was a
would-
resolution, yes.
Maybe that would be something that you would say, no action is being taken here, and then continue on with your meeting.
Well, that's what the counselor just said. He says no action was taken. And if there was any action or resolution or anything out there, it would have to be put out to public knowledge.
I understand, but isn't even no action information for us to know what happened with that particular item? If somebody would say no action is being taken against this, then I would be asking my question tonight. I would know that there was no action taken. And then you voted to close the meeting.
Didn't say no action was taken.
Did you hear what the Madam Clerk said?
Yes.
Yeah, when they entered the open session, when they discussed it, there wasn't any action or anything taken, so that's why I did not put that in there.
Okay. Clarification to the taxpayers of the city really would be appreciated.
Well, ma'am, there's one thing, I don't want to belabor this, but if there was any sort of action, any resolution, any activity whatsoever, you have to disclose that. So we would have disclosed that.
I understand that. I'm new to this whole process here.
No problem.
So I just wanted to know if something was done. There seemed to be problems with the recording at that particular time about you didn't know if you were live or not live. So I just
Just
wanted-
like tonight when we started getting going and we're set to go and
Exactly.
then ding.
Exactly. So I just wanted to make sure that I missed nothing.
No, you didn't.
Thank you.
All right, ma'am, thank you.
Andy Kleist, 6025 Parkview Road, Greendale. I just have two quick comments. First, I just want to say appreciate your efforts you guys are making to address the noise issues, particularly over at The Rock. And I ask that you please approve item G9 on the list tonight, which is the resolution to confirm the internal procedures for entertainment events. Secondly, regarding the sound monitors at The Rock, I'd ask that you guys please look into moving those sound monitors as suggested by the Milwaukee County Sound Study. So if you're putting in the effort to make those monitors, publish the data online, it would make sense to also move those 3 sound monitors into a location that align with the events that are happening at The Rock. For like the north sound monitor, that's probably about 100 or 200 feet downhill from where there's live music, baseball games. It would make more sense to move that monitor as well as the other 3 to align with the events, better decibel reading of what's actually happening on the site. So again, I'm just asking that you please look at moving those sound monitors since you're investing a lot of time and energy into maintaining those, as Milwaukee County had suggested originally too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kleist.
Good evening, Joy Draginas Zingales, 7573 Highview Drive, Greendale. I would like to echo what Andy just said. I think it's very important that we're taking a look at the sound issues because they do not only affect Franklin, they affect your neighbors in Greendale. And that's just a common courtesy. That's being a good neighbor. So I would love your support tonight for G9 as well. I've read the resolution. I think it's definitely an excellent start and move forward to the issues that have been going on for years for us. As far as the sound study, I would love to have that actually visited by the council because I think there's a lot of very pertinent information in there that is a non-biased company that was brought in as an independent that gave their review as far as the information that they were able to obtain. And I think moving forward when it comes to noise or any issue, whether it's The Rock or anything else, I think their information in there as experts in the acoustic field are valuable and much more worthy than I guess any of us who aren't experts in that field. I would also like to echo Andy stating moving the sound monitors. Once again, when you look at the mathematical equation that we all learn in middle school on how sound travels, we know sound does not travel down. Sound does not go like this. It doesn't go through things. It actually bounces off of things and it travels like this. So if we have a sound monitor that's down here and we have an event that's up here, what's happening? It's going over the top. That's why we continue to complain about noise issues in our homes, because we hear them because of how sound travels. None of us in here are experts in the field. Let's look at the experts. Let's get them in here. Let's let them guide us as to what's right or what's wrong. Or accurate, I guess. And the sound monitor that's actually closest to 76th Street is so close to the road that you're really only going to hear the noise. And that is something that the acoustic company and I spoke about when they were in my yard every single weekend doing readings. And they spoke about that it was a very ineffective placement for the sound monitor. Not only that, those sound monitors are solar. So it's not like you're having to move electricity. It's not a huge expense. I called RSG and asked them if it would be a major expense to do so, and they said absolutely not, because of the monitors that are being used. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Good evening. Dana Gant, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. Sorry, I have a cold. I just want to express my appreciation for the creation of the resolution, item G9, regarding adding clarity to the entire permitting process universally for all events in the city of Franklin. I'm hopeful that this will help resolve some of the longstanding issues that we have all are fully aware of. I think it's very clear. There's a whole listing of, someone did a tremendous amount of effort to address all the different ordinances that apply to the whole permitting process. I'm just hopeful that this can be enforced and approved. And then the second comment I have is regarding the Milwaukee County Sound Study. I appreciate the city acknowledging the receipt of that and that it's actually linked on the City of Franklin website. And I'd like to actually ask that that be placed on a agenda item like March 19th to actually have some discussion about the sound study results and their recommendations. So thank you so much for the resolution. I appreciate your support if that could be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina.
Good evening. Dale Kerner, 8630 West Hawthorne Lane, Franklin, Wisconsin. Again, what my other neighbors said, this resolution 9 is a wonderful thing. In fact, if you read the last thing, it says for the protection of the health, safety, and well-being of the community. Isn't that what we're after? This Enchant thing was wonderful. They interacted with us. They said if there's a problem, call us. We had no problems. They made money or not, I don't know. I don't know if it affected my neighbors in Greendale, but Franklin, we experienced next to nothing. Another happy note is the ski hill is closed for the season. He says, what's happy about that? They run the snowmaking machines all night long. I can hear it at my house. And I've called and nothing changed. So it'd be like your neighbor idling his car in the middle of the winter at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, but thank you for the Enchant thing, and I hope we can work together and we can all have a wonderful summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, Leslie Sharapella with PSG 448 Falcon Ridge Drive, Burlington, Wisconsin. I'm here today along with some members of Spellman Trailers. We're here, items 3 and 4 on the agenda. If there's any questions for us when those come up, we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? Going once, going twice. Closed citizen comment period. Going on to D as in David, hearings, there are none. E as in Edward, organizational business, there is none. F as in Frank, letters and petitions, there is none.
Sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Approval of the minutes?
Yes, I got excited. We ended a quick citizen comment period. Approval of the minutes, regular council meeting minutes of February 21st, 2024. We've got a first, Yusuf is a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have, motion carries. We just discussed D, E, and F. Moving forward to G1. So to touch on the gentleman that's talked earlier about the issues or the numbers from the enchant, I have not gotten any. Is it being forgotten? No, it's not being forgotten, but I cannot force to come to the table with information that I do not have. So that's it. I mean, when we get it, we will provide it. That's all I can say. But it's good to hear from neighbors that it was as far as issues go. I mean, I attended, it was jam-packed, seemed like every night, but we didn't have any issues. It was great. We did already give out some preliminary numbers for first responder calls, and it was very minimal, so that's a good thing. So a little bit of today when it comes to the noise-related update, what I wanted to do is we had discussed a number of things with, yeah, that's true, I'm gonna switch that off now. I mean, Dale's a good-looking man, but I don't think he wants all that attention. Thank you. We'll leave that alone now for tonight. So looking at the Milwaukee County Sound Study and its intricacies and what we can learn from it and what we've discussed from it, and there were some things that were very obvious on its face, and one of the things that we wanted to do, and there were some other things that they dug into the weeds on. And I think that's one of the guidelines to success is to follow some of the things that the experts have come up with and some reasonable things that can be done, and hopefully that will be addressed. And, looking at the accessibility of this sound study and making it such that it's out there for everybody in the world to take a look at and see. And we integrated some of those things right off the bat. Some of those things that were dealt with right away with the turning into the speakers, and there's one that was removed. I mean, these were things that were done by Zimmerman and management team. They did it, basically right when that came up, but they knew it was going to be done anyway. I mean, it was pretty obvious. So that's a good thing. I'm going to open this up for any discussion right now on this, if there is any from up here, and then we can close this out. And what I'm looking for is just a motion to receive it and place on file, which will be accessible. Mr. Holfer.
At this time, I would move to request that the report be included in an upcoming council agenda so we can look at it further.
Second.
Yes, that's the motion we'll go with, because I agree. I mean, just what we'll do is when you've got a 240-page document to go through and then discuss the points that you wish to bring forward and discuss, which is great. I mean, this is how we get things fixed. We all talk about it, which is a good thing. Alderman Barber.
I would hope, or I would maybe suggest they be done as a committee of the whole, where it's the only agenda item, and not we have time constraints with other items. So if you would amend that, I'd be open to.
I would amend it to that, yes.
A committee of the whole voted strictly to the sound study.
And I would think that it would be an opportunity for us to look at it in advance, formulate our questions to make it an efficient process, not that we have to go line item by line item.
That's fine. Let me ask you, what's the first week of April schedule? Because I think.
Well, the meeting is,
Can you say it a little louder?
the meeting is the 3rd because of the election.
So it's Wednesday, April 3rd is
Correct.
Wednesday, April 3rd is the next council meeting. Tuesday, April 2nd is the election. So then Monday, April 1st could be a committee to whole meeting. Right, that's why. So on your point then it would be pushed off until May for a committee of the whole meeting because of the election cycle. Mr. City Attorney.
You can call a special committee of the whole meeting.
Yes.
So perhaps the Monday after the election. April 8th? Then what we'll do is we'll set up a committee of the whole meeting for Monday, April 8th. And that way that'll give,
Yeah.
School board.
how about, Public Works have to move. I mean, Tuesday, April 9th, we could then So we'll go with the next committee of the whole meeting is Tuesday, April 9th. And we'll do that here, and then we'll just have to move Board of Public Works to a different, the hearing room or something, please. Okay, so then everybody's clear on that? Sounds good? All right, moving forward.
We have a motion
What,
and
we
a
have,
second.
well, just to have a committee of the whole meeting. I mean, we're just having a committee of the whole meeting, and that'll be we don't need anything further other than having a committee of the whole meeting.
Motion second.
But for what?
Put it over.
Well, but we're gonna have it,
That's what's stated.
okay, you can have your motion, okay, the motion's there, first and a second, but we're agreeing that it's gonna be on committee of the whole. All right, fine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay? Item G2, authorization for the Department of Public Works to purchase a 2024 Caterpillar 950-BR front-end wheel loader. Who's going to be speaking on this one? Any comments on this? Can't hear you.
This is a piece of equipment that's in the budget for this year. It's under $500,000, so we're getting ready to purchase it. A loader, front-end loader.
Excellent. Any comments?
No, I'll make the motion to authorize.
Second. First and a second, the same. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G3, a resolution conditionally approving a land combination for tax key numbers 899-9991-002, 899-991-003, and 899-9991-005, and vacated service road lying north abutting lots 1 and 2 of certified survey map number 1330, approximately 5921 West Ryan Road, Spellman Trailers, the applicant. Mr. Fuchs, good evening.
So as you mentioned, it's a land combination to create a single property out of the lands mentioned. It'd be a 2.71 acre parcel. The Plan Commission did recommend approval. They also approved a site plan. This is all related to a building addition and a few other site modifications, landscaping, additional green space, which helps improve the green space situation on site. So staff's recommending approval.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
First and a second, Barbara's second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G4, a resolution authorizing certain officials to accept a signage and landscape easement for and as part of the review and approval of a land combination permit, 5921 West Ryan Road, Spellman Trailers, Inc., property owner.
Move to approve?
Second.
Excuse me, first and second. No further discussion. All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Well done. Item G5, request common council approval to purchase a 2013 Pierce Saber fire engine from the city of Lake Mills and fund associated setup and outfitting. Chief, good evening.
Good evening. The untimely demise of our 2007 fire engine at the end of last year and the cancellation of our order with Seagrave, we were put into a little bit of a corner with being short on vehicles to provide day-to-day service. So our staff began a nationwide search for a suitable interim piece of fire apparatus. We were lucky enough to find one locally that we didn't have to go out of state to inspect or to ship back. The unit that is before you is owned again by the City of Lake Mills Fire Department. They are the original owner. It has seen very little use. We did have it inspected by a certified emergency vehicle technician that we've worked with in the past. He He gave it a very clean bill of health. He believed that it would be suitable to suit our needs for the city of Franklin in the interim period until we receive a new piece of fire apparatus, and then potentially serve as a backup piece after that. Came in a little bit higher on the investment than expected. Even since January, the demand for this type of unit has gone up. Communities typically don't put these on the market. They hold them and use them for 20 plus years. So it's a little bit unusual to find one in this good a shape. But it did cause the price to go up a little bit. So we're asking for a slightly higher amount of $12,000 to handle the necessary maintenance to make it certified for service for our use. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any further discussion? Uh-oh.
Yes, sir.
Mr. City Attorney.
Only recognizing that the execution by Lake Mill has to be completed in regard to signing in the presence of the notary.
And the notary, right? Understood.
And I forgot to mention on the last one that they had to change the mayor and clerk's name in the easement. Unrelated.
Mr. Craig, did you have something?
Yes, real quick, with the purchase of this unit and meeting our needs, what is the likelihood of where you talk about other communities and their pressing needs of where, you know, the lending it out to other municipalities? Would this one be moved to the back of the line and be kept more for in-house, and an older vehicle being the one that would be lent out to an Oak Creek, to a Hales Corners or a Greenfield and things like that?
That would be correct. So
Okay.
because of the this one being a little bit newer than we would expect, it will probably be around longer and serve us longer than we initially expected as well. The benefit it would give us is that currently anytime that we need an oil change or need to do a repair on one of our units, we have to borrow from a neighboring community. We actually had a North Shore engine that was in our Station 1 for about 2 weeks. You may have seen it out on the road. We had one of our units in for an electrical issue. So by having this extra unit in place, it will eliminate kind of that burden on our neighbors, and it will allow us to reciprocate in the future.
Very good. Thank you.
So we had Alderwoman Eichman.
Oh, just a quick question. Chief, will it be housed at Station 1 then?
The intent is to actually house it at Station 2 on 60th and Oakwood. It has a slightly larger water tank of 1,000 gallons, and the more rural area in the southern part of the city, it probably will serve best at that location.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we had a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good work. G6, excuse me, a resolution to execute statements of non-reimbursement by Franklin Water and Sewer Utilities to Wisconsin Department of Transportation along West Ryan Road, West St. Martin's Road, State Highway 100 from South 60th Street to West St. Martin's Road, and authorize temporary construction easements for the same areas. Mr. City Engineer.
When the DOT does a project and they expand their right-of-way over our utilities that we already had an easement, we have the luxury of not moving if we don't want to. They could pay us to move our utilities, but this agreement allows us to keep our utilities where they are, not go through the hassle of having to relocate them. But everyone understands that should they need them moved in the future, it's on DOT's time to make them move. So it behooves us to sign this.
Excellent. Any further discussion on this? If none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
First and a second by Mr. Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have a motion carries. G7, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 98-1857, an ordinance to change the salaries for mayor and aldermen to increase the allowances for mileage and expenses, including technology expenses for mayor and alderpersons. And what this should have been or should not have been talked about or stated, this is not a change in salary, not at all. And the city attorney will explain that. And this is simply a readjustment in what we get for mileage reimbursement. And just so anyone out there is listening, the gentleman up here was completely wrong. I wish he was still here. And this is something in a mileage reimbursement that hasn't changed since 1998. 1998, I'll say it again for impact, 1998, when gas was 1/3 what it is today. And this is simply discussion and potential action to make that mileage and technology stipend more realistic. And before we go into discussion with this, Mr. City Attorney, if you could basically go over for a minute, and we'll wait till your mic is on and make sure everybody's good, that you can discuss why this is not a violation of federal law. This is not a violation of state law. This is not any sort of violation of any ethics code whatsoever. This was simply a baseless attack by the gentleman.
With regard to the subject matter of whether these costs are something that could be increased by a common council that's applicable to the current common council members, the answer is yes. I did the research on it, statutes, case law, et cetera. I think that was actually last fall. And short version, a League of Wisconsin Municipalities opinion, number 423, quote, "The monthly general expense and auto expense payments paid to the mayor and members of the common council may be increased midterm without violating section 6209 sub 6 sub B of stats, parent governing the timing of city officers' salary changes, close parent, and 66196 stats, parent, prohibiting midterm salary increases for council members, close parent, unless the amounts are not reasonably related to the actual expenses incurred by the mayor and alderpersons, and instead are designed to increase the official's level of compensation." And it cites a 1967 Wisconsin Supreme Court case, So versus City of Cudahy. Mentioned this last fall to staff. Understanding is, yes, the actual cost increase is factually and reasonably related to actual cost incurred by the subject official in office. And the treasurer, city treasurer, is nodding her head yes. And also, as a second check, which I do sometimes, I called the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Legal Counsel, and her opinion was exactly the same as mine.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber, then Alderwoman Eichen.
I will be making the motion to do it, but I have a couple comments before that. I would not ask to increase my salary because I understand that that would have to be held over to the next election. And would not try to do that. What I am asking for, or hoping to achieve with this ordinance or making the motion, is the fact that gas in 1998 was $1.12 a gallon, and now it's up over $3.24 a gallon. Price of ink, paper, computers, all the things that we use as the expenses of doing my job and responding, even telephone, all that has gone up astronomically over the same period for probably exactly the same amount or, a proportionate increase. So I think it's fair to allow us to recoup some of that in what we do daily for the citizens. So I'm going to make the motion to approve the ordinance.
Well, okay, Alderwoman Eichen?
Thank you, Mayor. What Alderman Barber said, I just wanted to echo too. Many residents are not aware that we use our own personal cell phones, our own paper, our own ink. We don't have a cubicle or an office station set up here at City Hall provided for us. Other municipalities are city-issued cell phones, laptops, computers. I mean, internet, as everyone knows, Spectrum just seems to be going up and up every single month. So that is the responsibility of all of us alders that we don't get reimbursed for. So as it says mileage, I just wanted to clearly state out, it says mileage and expense. So the expense portion being of what Alderman Barber just mentioned, as well as the things I added to it, everything has gone up quite a bit since 1998.
Are you seconding the motion?
I'm going to see if anyone else has anything else to add before.
Are you seconding the motion?
I'll second the motion.
All right, we're seconded by Yusuf. Let's do a roll call on this, please.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
No.
5 ayes, 1 no. Motion carries. Moving on to item G8, an ordinance to amend municipal code 218-51, placement of recyclables and solid waste for collection to allow for setting containers out for collection 1 day prior and 1 day after scheduled collection days. Mr. Morrow.
Mr. Mayor, Common Council, after doing some deep dives today on this ordinance, I believe that the correct alteration should be done to a different section of the code, 218-4-G, as in Glenn. And so with that, I would suggest that you might want to, I don't know, table or put over to the next meeting so we can have an ordinance to modify an adjacent code.
Alderwoman, hey, did you have something first?
Sure, I can just speak to kind of the background to this. So what 218.4G states, which is not written here, there is a period of time per code when the garbage and recycling carts can be placed outside for pickup, and it's 12 hours prior to 12 hours after pickup, which in some instances has not been working for some of the residents in my district. The concern was brought to my attention. I spoke with the city engineer, I spoke with Johns to try to come up with a solution that we might be able to work with. And the solution that we are bringing before council is to perhaps expand that time frame a little bit on either side of that window to allow those grace periods for people who may be out of town. That window may occur in the middle of the evening when they get home and they don't want to roll their garbage carts at 2 a.m. up their driveway in the dark. So they have until the next morning and that type of thing. So I'm not looking to say, let people have their garbage carts out for a week. This is just expanding the time a little bit for a little bit extra grace period.
Alderwoman Eichman and Alderman Hofer.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add to what Alderwoman Day said about the time allowance. I mean, if you notice, part of it too is about being a good neighbor. If you notice that your neighbor's garbage carts are out, and it tends to be an eyesore, as I know myself and obviously Alderwoman Day have over time received complaints on that, you know, maybe go talk to your neighbors and say, I noticed sometimes you're out of town on the weekends in summer. Can we help you bring up your garbage carts? Do you mind if we help you bring up your garbage carts? You know, part of it's being a good neighbor versus complaining all the time that it's being an eyesore, and working a little bit together as a community as well. And then also, I just wanted to ask, to modify an ordinance, Glenn, doesn't that require a public hearing first, or no? No, not to modify it. Make any changes to an ordinance? I thought required a public hearing. Okay, thank you for that. I yield.
Mr. Hofer.
I don't know if there's, from my standpoint, really a need to do it. I see neighbors that put their cans in the street because they're narrow driveway and it says not to put them in the street. I know that there are neighbors that other neighbors joke, I wonder how many days they're gonna walk past now that they're empty, and you know, they come and collect the mail and don't take the can up. But I don't see us writing tickets or having all kinds of complaints coming in. So I guess I would side on the common sense side of it, because unless we're gonna actually go out and enforce it.
There have been citations, or not citations yet, but
Alderwoman Day.
threat of citations for noncompliance in my district.
Alderman Hofer, you still have the
No,
floor.
it's unfortunate. Like I said, 42 years and go on vacations and other things, and we always seem to find a way to make it work. So like I said, what are we going to do now? Are we going to tell the police department we have to monitor for trash cans if there's complaints and write tickets? And I yield.
Mr. Barber.
Sometimes there are neighbor-to-neighbor issues, and sometimes it's used as a negative to get back at people along the way. I have no problem with moving it to 12 hours, or, the 24 hours rather than the 12. I personally will take a garbage can up for one of my neighbors and put it next to the garage door, knowing they're out of town. But not everybody does that, I understand, but I think 12 hours would be a good median point, or a good starting, a finalizing point, actually, to accommodating people that maybe are out of town on either side of that, and it would help mitigate any kind of issues that come up with neighbor to neighbor, calling police, wanting citations, things like that. So that's my opinion.
All right. Hold on. So one of the things, Mr. Morrow, get to is, I know about winter time and snow removal and problems that they're having with the clearing of the roads, and where these cans get, in the way and everything else. And I know where I live in the far west side, our garbage day is Monday. That's got to be the best garbage day in the week to have. And our neighbors are, sometimes as good as Mike Barber, where, we'll bring them off the road, we'll put up the driveway, 6-7 feet, just to get them off the roadway. But I think too, this is getting a little crazy. But Mr. Morrow, and then.
So I just wanted to make sure, is this on? Okay. I wanted to make sure that everyone understands exactly what the policy and procedure is now. Per the code, there is a requirement. For one, you can't put them in the road regardless. So regardless if it's, in theory, if it stay out there all week, it shouldn't be in the way of snow plowing and such. I know my staff would prefer them not be there. But typically when we don't police for this, when we receive a complaint, we try to just send a letter, just kind of a warning letter. And sometimes there's, that the complaints still come in, and for sometimes very good reasons. And I do wish Alderwoman Mikeman, I'd love to write an ordinance that says you got to go talk to your neighbor first before you complain to the city. So, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. And I get to know a lot of Franklin's residents in an intimate way this way. So I would appreciate it. It would slow down some of the complaints that we do get because they can't complain for that reason. I do appreciate the fact that they're in the way, but I can't think that most everyone would keep them out there for 3 days. I think most people would still pull them in the same day, but there are reasons why people are on vacation and such, and we do field a lot of complaints on those kinds of issues.
Alderwoman Eichmann?
I was going to ask, Mayor, what you mentioned as far as winter and the snow. And there are occasions where things come up. I've got elderly constituents where a portion of District 2 garbage is picked up on a Friday, and somebody may be able to health-wise walk to their mailbox to get their mail, but they may have an ailment where they can't pull up the recyclable and garbage cans. They're not always that light for everyone. And I can think of one particular constituent whose son comes over every Saturday afternoon or evening to bring in her garbage cans for her. So I feel there should be a little bit of leeway. If it's happening over and over, maybe talk to your alderperson before you call the police about your neighbor not bringing in the recyclable container in time. That's just
That's fair enough.
what I'd like to add, and I'll yield.
So, Mr. Morrow, your recommendation or request would be that we table this till next meeting?
Either table or hold over. It'll be a different, it'll be amending a different part of the municipal code.
So then why don't we hold it over until being brought back?
Okay.
We won't say the next meeting, we'll just say until it's, I just want to make sure. Mr. City Attorney?
It's going to come back to the next meeting, proposing to amend a different ordinance for the same reason.
Did you hit your button?
Yes, I did.
Who's in charge of the buttons today?
I pressed my button,
No, you
and then
did.
somebody else has to press it apparently, because I always press my button.
That's where the failure in society is, that we can't get this right. Now it's off again.
I just turned it off because I was done. Now I'm not.
Who's pressing my button?
Mike wants who's pressing his button. See, complete chaos. All right, so it's gonna come back to the next meeting, sir? Is that what you're recommending? See, there, you're pressing the button again.
Yes.
Can't press the button. All right, short answer is yes, so it'll come back to the next council meeting. Thank you. Is there a motion to carry it over next meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Good, first, is there a second?
Second.
Second, see no further discussion, all is in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. Item G9, a resolution to confirm, what? Jason Craig. A resolution to confirm internal procedures on entertainment events and the required permitting and processes municipal officials and staff shall apply to obtain uniform application for the protection of the health, safety, and well-being of the community. Madam Director of Administration.
This resolution is, comes from the requested action to review our ordinances. It was brought to my attention as I was going through our municipal code in particular, that we already have a lot of these procedures and mechanisms in place. Somewhere down the line, we have detached from following those. And this resolution is simply a summary of what already exists in our municipal code. It's a lot shorter and sweeter than all of these chapters that are referenced in here. And I put this together with the hopes that this provides our staff with a consistent process. So I'm requesting that this summary of our existing ordinances and the process that exists today that are going to be followed, that you accept this and approve it so that it's back on file.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and second. We have plenty of discussion on this, I'm sure.
Plenty.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you. I mean, it looks simple on paper, black and white. There are ordinances that pretty much have not been followed, as some of the residents that are here from Greendale and Hawthorne can contest to over the past 10 years. A lot of changes in here to try to adapt to. I just am wondering how this is going to work, who's going to be responsible to be monitoring the sound systems, when will the police be called or not be called?
If you want to go one question at a time, and we'll try to answer those one at a time.
Okay, just to be fair, there are no changes in this resolution. This highlights exactly what the municipal code has been for the last almost 30 years.
Right, I'm not debating that, but it also hasn't been followed.
Correct, and that's part of what Mayor Nelson and his staff is trying to do, is ensure that our municipal code and ordinances are being followed. So this is all that is saying, hey, this is how this should be followed. This is what needs to be done. And it's a lot easier for our staff internally to understand what the processes are and where to look for further clarification should that be required.
My question is, the processes have been here and the ordinances have been here and they weren't followed. So who's going to be following this now? Say, for example, I mean, I don't want to put one venue, call out one venue over another, but say Polish Community Center, I'll pick something in my district, has an event and their decimal level is above what it states in here. Who's responsible then to monitor that, or what gets done, or?
So the monitoring of it, it would essentially come from any kind of complaint. So if somebody had a complaint, they would call the police department. That's the appropriate place where complaints go for enforcement requests. So it goes to the police department goes and handles it according to what their requirements are, and that's the process.
What the police department requirements are? So say 8 people call and they say, hey, the music's really loud at a particular venue. Each time a person calls, do we send a squad out each time? Like, let's say an hour lapse between calls.
I would say yes, then
Yes.
probably, and they would get 8 different tickets.
And has the police chief been notified about
Yes.
this? And we feel that that is the best resources for our Franklin Police Department.
Well, it's
It's the
ahead.
law for our
ready.
city. It doesn't matter who hasn't been following it. The fact is that it exists and these are our parameters to work within. We should have been, and we are trying to make it so that we are back on target and doing the right thing.
With this, since these are going to be, and I fully agree, I'm not doubting you that these have been here, they just have not been in place or have been followed.
They've been in place, they've not been followed.
Exactly, that's what I meant to say. So is the application going to be changed for us in licensing? Is it going to include some of these ordinances? I'd like to ask that it does, so that it's clear, black and white to the applicant, so they have a copy of it and they can see what their expectations are, what they need to follow, guidelines and so forth, to make it an easier process on everyone. Is that something that you think we could do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can, and I believe that that was the direction that was provided by council in the past for our applications and our permitting and licensing process. But I was not part of that. I understand that there was that request, though, to have those things changed and brought back.
Right, and then I believe it was tabled, but you're correct, it was in front of us before. And then I'd also like to ask, and this is the last thing I'll add for right now, is if perhaps the committee or the group that put this all together, I know there were several that met and spent a lot of time on this, if this could also be available possibly on our city website too?
Yeah.
Just to make things easier for the clerk's office and for staff.
Yeah, I mean,
Click on there and see the ordinances, and if there's any questions.
yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
and I like your idea of adding it to permits and applications. I mean, I think that it makes sense. We want to be transparent. We want to be able to reference, because this is what we are basing all of our decisions and actions on, or should be. And that's why we're trying to bring it full circle and acknowledge that we've had a lot of turnover over the years, and there's been things that have changed, and we're just trying to get everything back to the basics, if you will. And if something changes in the future, then we'll adjust it accordingly. But right now, this is what we have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, on Alderwoman Eichmann's first point, so when you were talking about decibel readings, right? Decibel, okay? Now, when we're looking at decibels in special events, what this benefits is it allows, and I'm not gonna even mention any of the businesses out there that benefit from these special events, but there's quite a few. And what this does is this puts clarity, crystal clarity and direction on how this is done. And to ask if this is the best way for police resources, well, who else is to enforce this then? Exactly. The police have to enforce this, and as part of their job is to enforce city ordinance. And if there's violations, they will be dealt with swiftly on the spot. And that this is great to give clarification, but also gives those venues from the Polish Center, Swagger, whoever wishes to have these events, the guidelines they need to operate under. And that's what I think is the simplest, most direct way to answer this without going into the weeds and awry. I'll yield for right now, and then Mr. Holfer first, then Alderwoman Day.
Thank you. First, I'll just go on record to say I absolutely am in favor of enforcing our existing ordinances. And how it fell apart and why it fell apart, that's for another day. But we need to get this taken care of. There are a couple of things that I just seek clarification on. I guess the first thing is, I didn't see anywhere in here where it said that the police is the appropriate place for that to start. So I think all staff needs to be aware of that. The next thing is on page 91 in the second paragraph towards the bottom. It says these directives are not specifically directed at any particular applicant, operator, or operator, as the procedures are to be applied universally. Then if you go over to page 96, under noise and monitoring, compliance and complaints, item number 2, they're talking about sound monitors being set up and calibrated and having alarms. That seems more specific and not general to everybody else. And then also underneath that, it says alternatively, the Noise Pollution Clearinghouse guidelines that discuss plainly audible standards. So it's kind of like an either or. And I think we need clarification of when somebody goes out to a complaint, what the threshold is. So we need to clear up that. Also,
Audible. Did you want to speak to that? The clearly audible, when we were talking about that, how a police officer would react to a noise
Oh,
complaint?
you mean, okay, yeah. Well, if it is up at the Rock where we're,
well, this would be for any.
For
I
anything.
know that, but are you talking about when they have their handheld decibel?
No, clearly audible means that if you go there and you stand outside and you can hear the noise from 50 feet from the lot line, that's considered then a violation. That's a pretty strict standard. And I'm just saying, what's the clarification? Is it going to be on the sound monitor, or is it going to be a clearly audible? This is an either or with no direction one way or the other. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands where we're headed.
Right. I would think that it would be at the lot line,
Okay.
or property
City
line.
attorney?
That particular provision was addressed in the Milwaukee County Sound Study specifically. And also, with regard to that type of provision, referred to it being in the City of Milwaukee Code of Ordinances. But I totally understand you do have decibel limits in the code. And there are general provisions in the Franklin Municipal Code also in terms of disruptive sound and public nuisance, et cetera, So it could be enforced where an enforcing officer is at the property boundary or on the adjoining property and hears a loud disruptive noise, and it would require testimony, et cetera, to prove that, and there could be room for debate, and it's not boiling down to the exact decibel levels or anything. But that's the scenario on that question. I understand the concern on that.
Right.
Okay,
Mr.
then
Hopefrey,
I just got a couple of other ones here.
Sure.
And we are
Officer?
recognizing then
We're
that the decibel limits are to be determined by the receiving district. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's an important thing. And then under process of review on page 95, paragraph 2, the last sentence, application review process should consider any existing complaints, non-compliance issues, and unpaid fees relating to the applicant and/or subject event use, et cetera. I just want to make sure that under fees, that we're referring back to 169-2, which says no outstanding unpaid personal property taxes, charges, assessments, or forfeitures owed to the city. That will all be under consideration.
Correct.
Okay.
And ultimately, every permit, every license comes to the Common Council for approval or approval with conditions or denial. But yes, it covers any kind of outstanding debt to the city.
Okay, then the only other question I have, because it sounded kind of subjective, is when it says shall not reasonably encroach upon. And I just didn't know who's deciding what's reasonable. But those are all the questions. I think this is a tremendous opportunity to move forward and get some pretty final resolution.
Yeah, again, there's different parts of our code that speak to within 50 feet of the sound source, and then there's different parts that speak to the property line. This right here, I am 100% open to any suggestions of how you would like to see that applied in terms of this resolution. If you want property line, or if you want within 50 feet of noise source, or what you all are looking for, because there are different areas that speak to those requirements. You're not on there.
You're all good. Don't touch anything. Mr. City Attorney, you've got the floor.
I touched it first.
Oh, boy.
With regard to all the specifics, I have all those concerns from ground up. And that's necessary in a review. My thought was, and my understanding is, the Milwaukee County Sound Study done by the experts is coming back for council discussion and review. And I also understand that it was going to be reviewed as part of the Unified Development Ordinance update with the consultant to the city for that purpose. So all the details get worked into the municipal code, whether it be only code or still keep both Unified Development Ordinance and municipal code sound provisions, et cetera. So all of that is a work in process, per my understanding.
So, yeah, sorry.
Mr. Olfer?
So if we move forward with this evening, we still have the opportunity to fine tune with the progress of the other things that are going along.
Yeah, those things are still in progress. So we still have contracted with House of Levine to finish the UDO rewrite. And as part of that, we had added, per your recommendation and council approval, the noise sound piece of it and to incorporate a new workable solution. And then also, my understanding is that there was recommendations by the sound study for adoption of a table. What this resolution is right now is we wanted to lay the groundwork and state it's all in our code. It just needs to be followed. Obviously, the code is over 20 years old. I think it's closer to 30 years now. A lot changes in that time, and then we will have to likely do some adjustments. However, there are practices that we should be following, and I wanted to bring that kind of full circle and make it that, and then we can work on adjusting it however is appropriate and the council deems from there forward. But I felt like we needed something.
It's like communication with staff will be critical, and I yield. Thank you.
Correct, yep.
And a further point to this was, you know, we're looking at our established businesses that are looking to have special events that obviously help to their bottom line, help them succeed as a successful Franklin business, and we're not looking to hamstring anybody. We're not looking to do that at all. And I think this gives the places, let's say you're the Rock and you want to have concerts, well, this is going to help you. Same thing, Swagger has their event. Others have their events. This is going to help define and open up and then also reduce complaints on the other end because it gives them different allowances in which to successfully operate their special event. Alderwoman Day.
Thank you. So I'm going to echo a lot of what Alderman Holfer and Alderwoman Eichman have already said. Just a few extra points of clarification. I agree with Alderwoman Eichman with regard to the License Committee. If somebody could just take this document and reconcile it with the special event application or maybe clerk's office and just look at them side by side and make sure that all of the components are on both documents. I know many of them are, but I think some of them probably are not. So just to verify that is there. The other piece, and this is a bit from personal experience, want to make sure that all staff that are sort of called out in this document to be like the gatekeeper of certain steps in the process are aware of, not necessarily the changes, but aware of what their responsibility is.
Right.
And that they are comfortable with that responsibility, because I do know, again, from personal experience, that some people may come in, stomp their feet, yell real loud, get a little bit nasty about their events taking place, and just want to make sure that not only those staff feel comfortable upholding this document, but that we as the council and the administration is going to back them up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this document, depending on if it's approved or not, will be a catalyst for a staff meeting and further conversation to really go through the process of what should be and what we need to get on the right path of implementing as of tonight, tomorrow, as soon as if it's approved. That's what I would like to do, is really work with the staff to ensure that they understand what the process is, what requires a permit, what requires licensing, what is involved with all of those processes, because they vary. And also, the director of finance was kind enough to let me know that nobody is checking with their department to ensure that the organization's bills are paid in full. So we're obviously going to have to put that into that process.
And that is not an unreasonable request for us to make to finance. I've worked in other municipalities where a condition upon any license, whether it's liquor, food, special event, is conditioned upon them having their bills paid. So we would not be an outlier if we added that to our process as well. The one thing that's sort of been touched on, and I just, again, want to make sure that police is aware that we are wanting them to respond to noise complaints.
Correct.
Will respond to noise complaints. There was some back and forth in the recent past between the administration and the police department about who was responding and whose responsibility it was. So I just want to make sure that the current police chief is on board with this plan and will.
Under this administration?
Yes.
And under this mayor?
But there are different players involved. I want to make sure that we're on
Right.
the same
And I
page.
just want to stress that. Under this administration and this mayor, we have had those conversations and we will continue to have those conversations. The expectation is the staff here in planning is not going to be monitoring and enforcing any kind of complaints that's occurring outside of their wheelhouse, I guess, or what they would normally be expected to deal with. That does not include sound complaints. It's not in their wheelhouse. It's not what should be occurring. It's very clearly listed in the municipal code that is a function of our police department, and they are well aware of that.
Thank you, and thank
You're
you
welcome.
for all of you for making that clarification, and thank you to police for following that. And then my final question is just to ask that, I, for lack of a better term of what to call it, the after-action report or after-event committee or whatever, when the department directors get together and kind of talk about what happened. I really appreciate those reports, being on the license committee, so I would like those to continue, especially in light of this. And then I would like those reports also to be available to the full council as well, not just the license committee.
Okay. I don't know, does your office do the reports? I don't know who does the reports.
Have one meeting.
Okay.
And then they all discuss, but no one.
Where do you get that?
So we have, I believe they came from Katie.
Okay.
She compiled all of the notes from the meetings.
From what they.
Yeah, from what they talked about as far as what went well, what didn't go well, so that the license committee could review them. And I believe it was going to be put in their file.
Just their notes that they.
Correct,
Yeah, I was
yes.
gonna say she didn't compile all.
No, there's nothing official. She just compiled all of what they had, written down. Yes. So, and then,
Do you want that in writing or do you want that emailed? Because we can put that into a process.
Stay in the file.
yeah, I just want to make sure that it continues.
that everybody's-
Because it wasn't in this document. I would just like that process after the special events to continue as staff sees fit. So I don't know if that needs to be added or if it's just, within, your department director meeting to just ask that continue to occur, because I think that's a valuable insight for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, and I just wanted to touch on something else. The pre-event for when somebody comes and requests a application or a permit, license, what have you, what I've been told that hasn't been occurring and is also in our code is an estimate of our services as city staff. And I think that that's very important that we make sure that we are recouping our expenses and those estimates are provided. There is a process, I believe it's outlined in here, and there's a certain amount of time where those estimated expenses should be paid. And then there's obviously a shoring up of what was the actual versus what was paid.
do send it to the police department, they say they need officers or 4 officers, they will send us.
Good.
And they'll tell us how much it costs. So we do.
Yeah, and I believe that some do that, but not everybody. And it's just, again, about having a concrete, clear process that everybody here at City Hall is aware of.
Alderman Barber?
I appreciate the comments and the support from the constituents in that area. I also want to maybe come back to one other thing that I think has to be emphasized clearly up front, and that's the UDO. That has to be clearly spelled out for any developer coming to town so they know what their restrictions will be in terms of development. I think it's almost like a sign-off sheet that they'd have to sign, that they're aware of everything that we're trying to put into this and make them aware of it coming in. The enforcement on the other side of it, I'm all in favor of, but making sure that people know up front, because I've got a development that has been subject to some rumors and some different stories based on past histories of some organizations. So it has been affected by the residents there. It has affected the residents and their concerns. So I want to be part of the UDO so any developer knows what they're going to come into town with. And the same language needs to be there in force. I yield.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to add in, for clarification on the residents' behalf, as well as the venue, how do we avoid a situation, say a resident calls in because music and so forth is incredibly loud. We send an officer there. If the officer is involved on another call, he might not be able to respond right there and then. You know, things take precedence, obviously, in our city as far as emergencies. What if then the officer shows and suddenly the music's quieter, or certain songs have a higher pitch and then go down lower to protect the residents and so forth? So if an officer shows up and the noise isn't that loud, I mean, how do we get around that, out of curiosity?
Well, I'll address it.
Yeah, because I believe this is more police work.
Well, right, this is,
question
you're
than-
going into the weeds of the officer, and I would like to have the chief and/or representative explain the Franklin Police Department's procedures when dealing with noise complaints. And that's a reality. What you bring up happens all the time. Somebody calls, it's loud now. Oh, by the way, I'm dealing with a mental health subject or something else, and it takes another hour and a half to somebody can break free to get there, and the noise is gone. That's a reality. It's never going to get fixed. To think it's going to get fixed is extremely out there. It's not. So when it comes to that individual place, you look at the different complaints that come in. And I'll single out one place because I think it's wonderful and we don't have issues ever, is at Mulligan's. Every year when I got on licensing for 5 of my 6 years as an alder, they'd come every year. That file was like this with all sorts of checkoffs and no issues. And when we look at any issues or complaints, 0, 0, 0. Wonderful. Packed. Hugely successful event. What to change next year? Well, add 2 more fire extinguishers over here or something little over there. And, well, oh, by the way, there was one noise complaint that came from Oak Creek in the apartments across the street. What are you gonna do? But what I'm saying is they run a very tight ship, and I just gonna give them kudos because that's how they run their whole business. So, I mean, why not? But to your point, I'd be more than happy to ask the PD to come here and explain and answer different scenarios about how to do enforcement, but there's no guarantees.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Wazalowski?
With regard to the ballpark commons events, the decibel meters have
Right.
been updated, corrected. So you have the meters, so if the officer isn't there, you still have the recordings from the meters for enforcement purposes.
Exactly, right. That for that one particular instance, again, this is for everything that impacts noise. But For that instance, we would have that sound meter and would be able to reference that. And likely, I don't want to speak for the police, but that might be something that they do before they even go out to site or even make a next step might be to reference that sound meter to see if there is a violation.
That's exactly how it would work. If you have a complaint for noise up there, they're going to be able to look online, see right there, instead of driving up there and playing that whole cat and mouse game. There it is. It's right in front of you. Any further discussion on this? Alderwoman Day.
One last thing. As was indicated earlier, that all approvals, the final approval comes from council, not the license committee. But in the past, I do believe the full packet of information that the license committee gets to receive or receives to review in their meeting isn't necessarily included in the council packet. So I think it's only fair for, if council's making the final decision, to be able to see that that information as well. Otherwise, we get into a lot of like back and forth discussion when we get up here, and they don't have all of that in front of them. So it might just save us time at council if they were able to have that as well.
I'm looking to the clerk.
I'm not trying to pile on, Shirley. I just.
Applications, there might be a lot of information that isn't public. I'd have to look. Sure if there's- I know, but that's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Especially.
Well,
coming
yeah, I think.
I mean, we have hundreds.
Well,
So
Are
keep
you
it,
asking internally?
what I'm thinking is perhaps internally, if you're, when you're looking at the current form with this document and reconciling it, just see if there's any corrections that could be made to maybe make that process happen. Or maybe if it's the face sheet, you can take that off and just give the specifics to the event or something like that.
An executive summary, if you will.
Well, not, I mean, I'm not.
And I think maybe it might make sense. I don't know what the process is for license committee right now, but if we had 3 additional copies made and that was just for your information to review as a council members.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, can you turn on your mic so people can hears you?
The
Okay.
license committee gets the whole file, so they can see what happened in past years, if there were any complaints,
all in there.
anything like that. They can file. So, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm referring to, right now it would be the sheet that gets forwarded to the department directors to look at with those, 10 to 12 questions that are within the special event application. So that piece is what I'm referring to. It talks about like the hours, the type of event. Right now it asks questions about sound monitoring and lighting and bathrooms and food and all of that particular thing.
Are you talking about what she sends out to the department heads and
Yes.
what they send back? That's what you want included in the
The
packet?
pre-event, yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know what
I
it's
mean,
called though.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're right, there might be something in there that has a birth date on it, but that might be just like the first sheet, so you might be able to just not
Yeah,
include
I
that.
would have to.
I'd have to look at it, without seeing it in front of me, I don't really. It sounded like a good idea when I started talking, but now I'm.
Yeah, because sometimes there's a lot of
Yes.
personal information in those things that can't be.
Well, may I suggest that we have 3 council members that are on the license committee, that perhaps if other alders have questions, they can ask of that when the approval comes to council, or there could be a nice little summary provided from one of the members that's on the committee. For example, maybe the vast majority of applications don't really have a lot of history to it or issues, and maybe the ones that do are, there's a summary provided.
Well, if I could just get some clarification on this. I sat on licensing, okay, and when these let's say they're an annual event that comes up, and you're opening up that folder, are you saying that you want to know of things that happened at the end of it that should be in there, like there was good, bad, or indifferent? Or, I mean, you're only going to hear what's going bad there. So, I mean, maybe I'm not following you, but what exactly are you requesting to be in there?
So I'm going back to, if we go back to last fall for Hills Have Eyes, for example. So we went through, License Committee went through, we approved, I believe we approved the event in License Committee, bringing it to council for their review and approval. And there were a lot of questions from the council members who were not on License Committee about some of the specifics in the application, or that type of thing. And my thought was, if they had the application ahead of time, they would be able to determine if they were going to have questions, that perhaps they could either then attend the License Committee meeting or send those questions to the License Committee to be able to provide answers to the council. I'm just trying to save time at the end when some of these events come through.
Okay, I guess I follow what you're saying. I don't know if there's, I guess if it's something bad happened, you're gonna have a police report attached to it, you're gonna have all sorts of things that are gonna be in that folder, in that file, and you're gonna be able to use that as your gauge to whether you wanna move it forward for recommendation or denial based on issues that have happened. I guess that's the only thing you're gonna have, is if there's actual something that bad happened.
Yeah, I just know it has been asked from the residents as well, to see some of that information. So I'm trying to bridge a gap and make the process smoother. But if it makes it more complicated on the clerk's end, I don't want to pile on for Fridays, and make their lives more difficult to
Sorry,
So-
Dana.
Dana,
So-
no, we have to make a motion
so-
to suspend the rules. We're not able to do that this evening.
We're not suspending rules. So to go, Alderwoman Day, I think, and Madam Clerk, correct me if I'm wrong, so let's say, for example, a citizen, and I'll again use Mulligan's, let's say they have their halfway to St. Patrick's Day celebration, which again runs flawlessly, extremely well attended. Is anybody, if they want to come and see this folder, is that public, can they see that?
Well, no, they can't go through the folder because there's birth dates and everything else in there.
Okay?
They can request, then we have to copy it, redact it.
Ugh.
Dana has come in and looked at the rock for several hours, but we had to redact, if there was stuff in there that had to be redacted.
Sure.
But you can come to the License Committee meeting and they can, it's open to the public, so.
Right.
Okay, so that's an option. I know what you're trying to accomplish, and going off of her privacy part. and
Yeah, I'm not trying to
sure.
make it more complicated. I forgot about those pieces.
I mean, there's driver's license in there. And we do record, in December and at renewal time, we do send over to the police department all the establishments. And they do send us if there was, anything that happened at the establishments, they'll send us the reports and then we'll put it in the file like you saw that last one.
Yeah.
You good? Alderman Barber.
I'm not sure what giving some information to 3 additional aldermen is going to take away from any of it. I mean, if there's circumstances out there that they should be aware of in the decision-making process, there's 3 of us that are not on that committee that are equals and should have the right to know what is a basis for the decision. So I don't see where sharing that information is any kind of a problem. And I would like to see it as well, although I'm not on that committee. If there are circumstances that would mitigate it or would be part of a decision process, I'd like to know ahead of that going in as well. So I'm looking for just kind of the same packet, and that's something that will just be shared with the 3 aldermen ahead of time, so that when we come, if we had any questions based on that, we could move forward with it.
All right, are you good?
I'm good.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand what being on licensing as well. I understand what Alderwoman Day is saying, to have all the information available to the other 3 alders that are not on licensing to make an educated motion or not based upon the information that's in the folder. And city attorney, please correct me if I'm wrong, to invite or have the other alders attend licensing, we need a back key notice, it'd be a quorum, number one. Number two, there is no citizen comment period in licensing. And then as far as a summary, as the city administrator brought up, licensing meets directly right before the common council meeting. 7 out of 10 times we're running down the hallway to make the common council meeting. There's no time to do a summary in between licensing that meets directly right before the common council meeting. It's a great thought, but that's all I wanted to state. I yield.
Mr. City Attorney, then Alderwoman Day.
Yes, that wouldn't be a back notice situation.
You didn't
I
even
push
touch
the
it.
button.
He just needs to leave it alone, so.
Whoever has to push it after I
I know.
do is late,
Leave it on.
and somebody else won't be able to use theirs. And my thought is, has this ever been an issue? And you do have 3 council members, and what I'm hearing are concerns for perhaps negative facts with regard to an application. And I dare say, if they're there, 3 aldermen on license committee meeting would bring that up at the council meeting.
That's what I'm thinking.
Next. So
That's what I meant about the summary, just for clarification purposes.
Hold on.
but I don't recall this ever being an issue.
Okay. Alderwoman Day, then Alderman Holfer.
Do I leave my light on?
This is not meant to be punitive and only call out the negatives. I guess in my brain, it just clicked. I know that Katie and now Maggie, I'm not sure, sends us, whenever there's a special event application, she sends us the PDF of that. Could that just be sent to all 6 of us instead of just the 3 on license committee? That's the piece I'm talking about, not the whole file, not other thing. I'm just talking about that document so that they can see the core piece of what's being reviewed. And then if they have questions or concerns, they can either come to the meeting, it's already bad key noticed on the bottom, so they can come to the meeting with us and listen to us have the discussion, or they can send us questions ahead of time or whatnot, but that's the document I was talking about. So if, just send it to all 6 of us rather than just the 3 on license committee. That's the easiest way I can explain it. Sorry that
Right.
took 20 minutes. My brain was not
And
there.
then you also want the after.
Just as long as people are not all going to respond.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be a warning.
It would be like the common council packet that gets sent out. And then you also wanted the after event staffing comments sent around the same way.
Sure, but I just wanted to make sure that was going to continue, because
Yes.
it wasn't in this document. So if that could just be added to the document, or
Sure.
just internally, when you have your department director meetings, just reiterate that you're going to continue that process. Just because I think that is helpful information for historical purposes, when the license committee changes over, that you can go back and see, kind of what.
Alderman Holfer.
At this point, I would like to move that we confirm these internal procedures.
Are we doing
Or
option
as-
A?
Yes, option A as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
There was already a first and second.
Already missed
Oh, that was like 25 minutes ago, sorry.
Barbara and Craig.
We all.
I'm just thinking about getting my can of Coke from the lobby.
It was Barbara and Craig.
So we have Barbara and Craig, first and second?
Yeah.
For option A?
Sir?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so we have a first and second for option A. I was with Mr. Holfer, I didn't know we had that already, so good. Any,
I didn't recall that either.
Yeah.
I know, because you want a can of Coke too, don't you?
Yes, I do.
It's,
It was
A
before I
20-minute
pressed
window
my
for
button,
some people.
Right out of the gate.
all right, we have a first and a second. Could we do a roll call on this, please?
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barbara.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Well done, Madam Director of Administration. Okay, G10, in ordinance to amend ordinance 2023-2569 An ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budgets for the General Fund, Health Grant Fund, Development Fund, Capital Outlay Fund, Equipment Replacement Fund, Capital Improvement Fund, Street Improvement Fund, TID 6 Fund, TID 8 Fund, and Sanitary Sewer Fund for the City of Franklin for fiscal year 2024 to approve budget encumbrances from the 2023 budget as amendments to the 2024 budget. Madam Finance Director,
Finally.
right? And this is a roll call vote.
Yes, it's a budget amendment. So every year, the general accepted accounting principles require us to search for encumbrances in our accounting software. We do that, and any open purchase orders or partial spent purchase orders are to be carried forward into the next year. At the end of the budget year, any remaining funds just go into the fund balance, and then this reallocates them to finish those POs and those projects. And then I can answer any questions. I provided you guys a detail of each of the outstanding POs, and I did go through the whole purchase order system with each department and asked them to let me know which ones were still outstanding, which ones could be liquidated, and which ones were going to remain open to be used in the 24 years. So this is an accurate depiction of what's open right now.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please. Well done, ma'am.
Alderman Hopper.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes and no motion carries. Let's see, moving on to item G11. Discussion on water services and hydrants on private lands in the city of Franklin. Mr. City Engineer.
So there is 5 pages on this council action. So it's a fairly important issue. Maybe we should have talked about this last night, committee of the whole meeting, but to summarize for the folks that haven't read the 5 pages, we're talking about services and hydrants for primarily the larger customers, businesses, industrial users. We're not talking about for the homes, just to make that clear. Starting in 2015, the fire department asked us to start taking these over and maintaining them. They had an issue where they pulled up on a project or a fire. No one was hurt, but they went to a hydrant and it was inoperable because the owner hadn't maintained it. Since then, there's been a similar situation in 2018. Some firemen probably got injured, and it was partly to blame on the fact that first hydrant they pulled up on and tried to operate wasn't operational, so they had to go find a fire hydrant somewhere else. That was a private hydrant that wasn't maintained by the owner. So completely understand the need for needing to take these over as a city. I can tell you from a water department standpoint, it does us no good, if you will. It doesn't really benefit us, and primarily we're concerned with the issue about the cost and expense. So you have a private hydrant, private line. It was put in without proper inspection, or it was behind a building where somebody, say a landscaper's digging and scrapes the pipe and so forth, and it can cause damage later on. It blows up, can cause a lot of damage. So there's been a couple examples where city-owned issue that cost a lot of money, and we're discussing that in a lawsuit. There's another issue where, fortunately, the property owner right across the street went through a couple times and made sure it was very clear that they vacated an easement, so they took that responsibility on. If you recall the Aurora issue, where water main probably was scratched when some expansion was happening over years, that wore out into holes and it blew up. It basically shut them down for quite a while. So there's a huge liability here if the city takes these on. We did some research for other communities. It's the whole variety, but several communities do require that people dedicate them, because for the fire department's issue, you do want to make sure that those are operational. So I do appreciate that. So I'm going to skip to the end, the options. So the Board of Water Commissioners, as
Page
discussed,
111.
Page 111. The Board of Water Commissioners discussed this at length, and they are recommending to the Common Council that you adopt the various things. So the highlighted items and the options are what they're proposing. So regarding should you require dedication of infrastructure on private property, they are recommending that you require all water services 6 inches and greater be dedicated to the city. For the most part, historically, we've offered the options. So people can come in, we say, we encourage you to, but you're not required to. The big difference there is the fact, and most everyone dedicates it, but not everyone. It costs more money to do that, and it costs, in some instances, more time. So to have something dedicated to the city, it's considered a public water main, so that has to go through the state review process. That's more time and effort. They have to pay a consultant to do all that. Plus, they need to pay us, the city, to inspect it, because now if it's a public water main, we want to inspect it and make sure that it's installed correctly. So they're paying for the cost of an inspector to babysit the contractor and make sure that all gets installed. So it is an additional cost of development. But like I said, most everyone does it anyway because they see the benefit of it. Like I said, not every community does this, but many communities do. If there are easements that are dedicated, we're suggesting that you change the language, or we change the language, so that of course, this wouldn't affect anything that's already previously been dedicated to the city, but we would change the easement so that the water utility would only be responsible for the pipe, the fittings, the hydrant itself. If it blows up and, say blows up a parking lot, or, damages the city or landscaping or whatever, we would definitely not be responsible for any of those issues. That's just a way to limit our liability. I say could be the city or could be the water utility's liability. And then budgeting. If we maintain these hydrants, there's private hydrants, when they were installed, they used a whole variety of pretty much every hydrant you can find on the internet now, and probably some that you can't even find anymore. So it's very difficult to find parts. It's very expensive to find parts. Sometimes we just have to dig up the whole thing and replace it. Even if it was one of our kinds of hydrants and hydrants that we know and have parts for, just the fact we have to go and exercise it, it does take additional manpower to do that. So there's a lot of extra effort on the water utility's part to do that. So we would ask that we would start budgeting where we could charge the owner of the facility for that time and effort to maintain and buy parts and so forth. So, or other recommendation staff. That'd be suggestions. So again, those A, B, BB, and CB in your options there. That's what the Board of Water Commissioners is recommending to Common Council. And like I said, I'm open up for discussion. If you have any questions as to why we're doing this and so forth. But this is something it just kind of dawned on me that with all these out there, and they're getting to be the age where we're going to start seeing a lot of these things just break like we do our mains. And it's really going to open the city up to a lot of liability trying to pay for all this. And it's just going to break our water utility financially.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Fire Chief, I'm assuming that you agree with this. You can just stay right there. It should be a simple answer.
We agree with the water committee.
Absolutely you do. Alderman Barber?
So what we're doing is asking for the staff to come up with an ordinance that includes all of the options above, or best practices, or best applies the ordinance, the options. So we're not asking you, we're not being asked to vote, we're just asking you to take a look at it and come up with a staff recommendation regarding all these options.
So this is our staff recommendation. But if you had a different direction, takes a lot of effort to do our ordinances different. So I have not drafted the ordinances yet.
I know.
But if this is the philosophy you want us to pursue, we can develop the template for the new easements. We can develop the ordinance and so forth to make all this happen.
This makes sense.
Move to direct staff.
Second.
Mr. Holfer?
The potential for expense is great. We have no rough understanding of what kind of liability we're taking on.
I don't know if I put this in there, but there is a lawsuit that's $97,000. I believe it's not ours, but that's outside really this discussion. But there are those kinds of things. If we had been liable for the Aurora issue, I mean, they shut down their clinic for weeks. In addition to all the other efforts to excavate, and we did help them out. By the way, we sent our trucks over. we used our vac truck to find the issue, and we used our connections with our contractors to fix everything. And, they paid for the contractors, but we still spent a lot of time over there helping them get this resolved. So, if you imagine that happening, a few times a year from now on, that's could be a huge expense. I can't even begin to touch the
Came
dollar.
with a solution.
But we're going to then take over and do the replacements of the valves and the testing and the inspection and all of that. And you're saying that that's going to be more cost effective than the other way. The other question I have is when it says it's been demonstrated poor compliance from those private entities in doing testing and things
So-
like that.
They're not doing
As it's fire safety related.
So, yeah, so when I say the other programs we have poor compliance, I'm referring to, say, our stormwater programs, where every subdivision that dedicated a storm pond is required to give us a submittal once a year, and it's, we send out reminder letters and such, but it's just hard to get homeowners associations to comply. In this situation, we actually do have a little bit better hammer, if you will. So the fire department actually visits them every other year.
I wanted to keep you out of the mix.
Our fire inspectors inspect businesses and places of employment twice per year. But however, like Glenn pointed out, we do a visual inspection of the hydrant, whereas the water department actually will exercise it. They'll take the caps off, they'll maintain it, which is critically important for public safety. If we do have a fire, the hydrants that we're talking about are located in major developments like apartment complexes, manufacturing facilities in the industrial park, very high value target hazards in the community. And with how lean that our department is staffed, I can't tell you how important obviously water is to fight a fire. And one of the incidents that Glenn passed on, we had a fire in an apartment complex, an elderly apartment complex on College Avenue a few years ago. And two of our firefighters got burned trying to rescue someone. It was a fatal fire. And the fire hydrant that we tried to use was a private hydrant on the property. And they had difficulty. They had to go to a different one, so there was a delay. So as much, and Glenn and I have talked, as much as I respect, his opinion and I see his views, the liability, I think, from public safety aspect outweighs it, that for these new developments coming in, we definitely, from the fire aspect, would prefer that the city experts, the water department, maintain the hydrants so that when we go to use them, we know they're going to be reliable.
So I think if I could directly answer what I think your question was about the certification program. So we did discuss maybe every business would have to either hire probably the same firm that would test their sprinkler system or something like that, have some sort of a certification form where they would have to certify that, I'm a certified plumber or something, and I went out and exercised it and I did all these other things. So I think that's what we did talk about. But I think part of the discussion was, the chances of the guy who knows how to fix the sprinkler system is probably doesn't have the same technical skills, because we do it all the time of repairing a hydrant. It just takes us, time is money. So.
Thank you for the explanation.
And to touch on your point, Alderman, about occupancy, we pretty much all agree. I bet when they first get their occupancy, everything's wonderful, and then everything kind of slips to the back. And so what you're bringing here is a solution. I think we should move swiftly and get this thing rolling. And I know we had a first and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Mr. Craig.
Just question, if we have buildings that have been vacated by the ownership and they're not being maintained and they still have private hydrants, for those sorts of circumstances, would that be something where you would look at that and say, is this something that would be, that the time, money, and effort to be put into that, to maintain it, is it there, or would it be something to cap?
So I would suggest to you that all the existing locations where there's an existing easement, there is easement language, and this would not apply historically, because we've already have if you will, a contract as an easement that said, here's what we're responsible for, here's what they're responsible for. So it will take some more onus on us to track which ones are the new ones coming in versus, pre-2024.
Thank you.
Okay, we had a first and a second. Do you have that, Madam Clerk? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. All done. G12, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2023-2569, ordinance adopting the 2024 annual budget for the Capital Improvement Fund to provide additional $12,180 appropriations for the exterior painting of the Franklin Historical Society's chapel project.
So moved.
Motion, second.
This will be a roll call vote. We've got a first and a second, and a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hope.
Aye.
Wonderful, 6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. G13, Committee of the Whole recommendations, recommendation from the Committee of the Whole meeting March 4th, 2024. This will be as directed, so I'll read these A, B, and C, unless we have to take separate action. Using excess American Rescue Plan Act funds for a water main project along South Lovers Lane from West St. Martin's Road to 8120 South Lovers Lane. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have a motion carries. Going on to B. B as in boy, using excess American Rescue Plan Act funds for utility projects in the vicinity of South 80th Street, South 76th Street, and West Ryan Road.
Move to approve.
Alderman Holfer.
You get a second, and I've got a comment.
Okay, we've got a first, Mr. Hussein. Is there a second?
I'll
Mr.
second. it.
Hassan?
I'll second.
Second by Alderwoman Day. Mr. Holfer.
So I received and forwarded the city engineer an email from a resident that would like to be included in the project, and I would make an amendment to add a discussion with the neighbors on the southwest corner of 76 and Ryan to see if anybody else is interested in participating and if they have any interest or ability to be assessed for that if it's not covered in the funds. And I would direct any other clarifications to the city engineer. Does that pretty much cover it?
You good with that?
You want me to tell the backstory?
Yes, please.
There's only one house in the southwest corner with that flat roof.
Actually, it's the house to the south of that, I believe. Is this the Scories? The name of the property owner. Anyway, so it's the house south of the flat roof. They realize how important this is to the value of their property, and they would have an interest, and they're willing to be assessed for the parcel. So it wouldn't take a lot of extra effort, but I had to go past one more property to get to it. So I'd want to definitely talk to that other person and make sure they're okay with being assessed, even if they may not hook up. So I'd like to pursue that. If it wouldn't be a lot more money, it's a way to get more of the people served in that corner.
Would that be the same assessment deal that the other people are?
Yeah, I would propose the same assessment deal that we talked about last night.
Okay, so do we have a first and a second? Yes. Okay, see no further discussion. Madam Director of Finance.
I probably should have said this before recommendations were started, but I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that these recommendations that were made last night, not all of them can be achieved with the ARPA funds that we have. So by approving the first and the second, A and B here leaves no money to be used out of the ARPA funds for the Johnson controls. So that's fine if that's your direction, but I just want to remind you that not all three projects can move forward with the use of ARPA funds. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys all took that into consideration after hearing everything from last night in what projects you wanted to use the ARPA funds for, how you wanted to do special assessments, and make sure that those questions were answered and those directions were discussed before you went and just started approving these.
Well, that's quite the curve.
Thank you.
Alderman Barber.
Given that circumstance, that's what I was kind of alluding to last night in terms of a cash flow, given the balance that's left, how does that fit
We
in?
have roughly $2 million left to use. The two water projects, letter A and letter B, would not leave much of anything except whatever is special assessed can be taken off. But I guess the full cost analysis hasn't necessarily been done on what the impact is of all three projects, just that not all three could be done with ARPA funds.
Given that, would you be prepared to come up with an alternative funding source for item C as far as this motion goes, the next motion at this point?
No, because we haven't even had a full proposal or anything from Johnson Controls as to what the financial impact would be, other than wanting to use some of the ARPA funds, but we don't even know what amount that would be.
But it could be brought forward at some other time.
Yes.
Yep.
Like I said, we know that with option A and option B, there will be some special assessments which will knock off the amount of ARPA funds being used. That being said, I believe that there will be a small amount that could be allocated to the Johnson Controls project. We just don't know because we haven't had that analysis from Johnson Controls, nor have we seen exactly what the amounts are going to be.
So using some special assessments, I think I proposed the combination of my two would be 1.7. So if you do need to have 2 million, that would leave, a few $100,000 left over.
But I personally look for a motion at some point, which maybe would include the residual funding as well as a new funding source to accommodate that.
Okay. I was just going to say that once the RFQ has been assigned to move forward with Johnson Controls, they will meet with each department over the next couple of months to define what those projects would be and also what the budget is and how all of that would shake out. So it's initially authorizing for us to contract with them.
Mr. City Attorney.
But there's no price that's been set. So when you say contract with them, the city does not owe them any money until an item comes before the council for a contract, the actual amount.
Right. So what we would end up doing is determining what the scope is, bringing it forward. It would be a very in-depth conversation, and Johnson Controls would be here to field those questions. And obviously, every department head would be part of this because from that project, we would all be impacted.
And there's no monetary liability to the city up to the point of them agreeing to a contract and from that point forward. So if the Common Council decides when it does come back to the Common Council with all the details that if the council's not interested, then there would be no liability by the city.
Correct.
So that's the obvious way to go with item C.
Okay, going back to B, was that an amended motion then? That Mr. Oprah wanted to through?
No.
Okay, so we have a first and a second then, correct? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going into C, Charles, Director of Administration to contract with Johnson Controls for a comprehensive efficiency program to benefit our aging municipal buildings and create cost savings efficiencies.
Move to approve.
Second.
Contract. City attorney that they would be authorizing the contract with Johnson Controls, or does it come back, the wording's supposed to be different for this third motion?
The wording is to proceed with Johnson Controls in working together for information necessary to create and draft contract terms, and nothing is approved until it returns to the Common Council for its review and possible approval.
Right. This just means selecting them as a contractor from the RFQ that we put out there. And then there would be a developer agreement that would come forward, and we would work on all of the details and the scope of the work.
Mr. City
And we
Engineer?
would want to have the city attorney review that contract agreement before it goes any further.
Well, there is none.
No, but you said they would develop.
That would be coming, like, as I said before, it would be in front of the Common Council. the scope, the term, all of that would be part of council discussion.
Mr. City Engineer.
I just want to be clear in case anyone misunderstands. So by adopting A and B does not authorize consultant to proceed. I'm going to return at the next meeting with a contract for Foth to do one and for Applied Technologies to do the other. And I would assume you're going to do the same thing with Johnson Controls. You know, we haven't approved any sort of contract yet, so.
Okay, we have Mr. Barber?
On the Johnson Controls, would, rather than contract, would the word explore capture what we're trying to accomplish here?
Mr. City Engineer?
Alderman Nelson?
That was my touche for 8:30.
Go for it.
At least you got the name right.
Suggest a motion to move forward with the RFQ process with Johnson Controls.
Okay, is that your motion, sir?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
First and second, see no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Excellent. Moving forward to licensing, who's got the licensing tonight? Is H's and Henry.
I do, Mayor.
Alderwoman Eichman, you've got the floor.
Thank you. License Committee met today at 6:00 PM. I called the meeting to order. Present were, of course, myself, Alderwoman Day, and Alderman Craig. The first operator license applicant was to make an appearance at 6:05 PM. That particular party did not show to his review with us, so he was a no-show. So there is not approved, not held, and not denied. Simply did not appear. And the other two operator licenses on here were both approved, as well as a temporary Class B for beer for the Franklin Noon Lions Club. We adjourned at 6:18 PM. The motion was made by Alderman Craig, seconded by Alderwoman Day, and all were in favor. Thank you.
Excellent, is there a second?
Second.
We've got, catch that? The first, second by Alderman Craig, second?
Alderman Barber.
Oh, yeah, concede Alderman Barber, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going on to IITA. Vouchers and payrolls, motion approving the following. Point number 1, city vouchers with an ending date of February 29th, 2024 in the amount of $5,994,818.99. Payroll dated February 23rd, 2024 in the amount of $465,629.61. And payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $515,987.97 plus city matching payments. And final point, estimated payroll dated March 8th, 2024, in the amount of $490,000 and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $255,000 plus city matching payments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
First for Mr. Barber, second for Mr. Holper. This is a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Holfer?
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Aye.
Alderman Assam?
Aye.
Alderwoman Day?
Aye.
Alderman Barber?
Aye.
Alderman Craig?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nos, motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a first, second by Alderwoman Day. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned at 8:33 PM. Hence the under.
Take the under.
We're slowly creeping off.
One on this side, and they tie.
Yeah.
Just because
Oh,
your initials are on the
we're
bottom
close.
doesn't mean that you have to
Slowly
make that
getting
motion.
off.
Recording stopped.
Excellent.
That means you weren't even on the agenda.
Well done.